Hi, the lesson today is going to be talking about fingerprint analysis. So everybody knows that your fingerprints are specific to you, but did you know that your fingerprints all have different patterns? So, according to criminal investigators, fingerprints follow three fundamental principles. First, a fingerprint is an individual characteristic. No two people have the exact same pattern. Second, a fingerprint pattern stays unchanged for the life of that person unless you have some kind of injury or skin disease that could possibly scar your finger. For example, if you worked in a deli and you cut part of your finger off with a slicer, you may not have the same pattern that you had before. And fingerprints have general characteristic ridge patterns that allow them to be systematically identified. So let's look at the three specific classes. Okay, you have what are called arches, you have loops, and you have what is called a whorl. Now the arches can be a plain arch or a tented arch. The loop can be a radial loop or an ulnar loop. And the whorl can be one of four things. It can be a plain whorl. It can be a central pocket whorl. It can be a double loop whorl. And it can be an accidental whorl. So some fun facts. 60% of people have loops in their fingerprints. 35 have whorls, and only 5 have arches. And the study of fingerprint identification is called dactyloscopy. So, the people that collect these fingerprints are known as dactylograms. They collect dactylograms. Okay, so they are collecting the prints, and the prints are called dactylograms. Okay, so I guess that would make them dactylologists. Maybe. So now let's take a look at those three a little closer. You have arches. Arches are the simplest type of fingerprints formed by ridges that enter on one side of the print and exit on the other. You don't have any deltas present. We're going to talk about deltas in a minute, so don't worry, okay? So you see the arch is just like a curve as it goes across your finger, or you can have a spike or a tent type arch, okay? So on the left, you have a plain arch, and on the right, you have a tented arch. Next, we have loops. Loops must have at least one delta and one or more ridges that enter and leave on the same side. These patterns are named for their position related to the radius and ulna bones. So they're the bones in this part of your arm. Okay, it's the two bones that go down from the elbow to the wrist. So here you see in the middle what a delta is. It's like its own little line or a piece of a line. Okay, so the right thumb, this one right here, has an ulnar loop in this picture. The loop opens toward the right or the ulna bone. Now, if you have a radial loop on the right thumb, that means the loop opens toward the left or the radial bone. On the left hand, a loop that opens to the left would be an ulnar loop, and one that opens to the right would be a radial loop. And lastly, we have a whorl. Whorls have at least one ridge that makes a complete circuit. Okay? They also have at least two deltas. If a print has more than two deltas, it would most likely be an accidental print. So here's how you figure out if you have a plane or a central whorl. You take and you draw a line from one delta to the other, and if some of the curved ridges touch that line, then you have a plane whorl. If you draw that line between those two deltas and none of the center core touch the line, then you have a central pocket whorl. This one you see is what's called a double loop whorl. So here's one delta, and here's the other delta. So they're made up of any two loops combined into one. See how the one loop comes this way, and the other loop goes this way? It almost reminds me of like the yin and yang symbol. Okay? And an accidental whorl contains two or more patterns, not including the plane arch, or does not clearly fall under any of the other categories. You don't see a tent, you don't see the arches, you don't see the deltas, just doesn't fit anywhere else. So here's a little test kind of to see if you can identify what the different types of fingerprint patterns are. Then if you would like to look at your own fingerprints at home, all you really need are to follow the directions on the next slide, and you can make your own. So you would roll the pad part of your thumb over an ink pad from left to right. Then you roll from left to right in a box that you would have on the paper. You continue that process till you have all 10 of your fingerprints done. And if you want to examine them even more closely, you can use a hand lens to see what the pattern is that your finger just left. If you don't have an ink pad, you could take a pencil and an index card, and you could scribble the pencil. Now, it doesn't work with a mechanical pencil. It has to be a regular pencil. So you would take the pencil, lay it on its side on the index card, and just keep scribbling until you get a lot of graphite onto that index card. You can use that graphite to then press your finger into and put it down on a piece of paper. So you don't need to have all this fancy equipment to check out your own fingerprints. Good luck on the assignment that is attached. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact. Thank you.